I had this curse of knowledge. I didn't understand the value of what I did. So in the beginning, I just thought...
To create an animated waveform for your podcast promotional video, you start with a background image that you can create somewhere like Canva, and then also a little snippet of audio that you pull from your podcast. And those two things get put into Adobe After Effects. So I'm using Creative Cloud 2018, and it's basic workflow should work for other editions of Adobe After Effects as well. But we're going to start once Adobe opens up by just dragging in the picture and the MP3 file, and it's going to start creating the project for us. So you can start with a new project, and then we're going to drag the two files into this place right here. So let me click both of them, drag them, and they're now both in After Effects. But this down here is where I need to put them for the project itself. So I'm going to drag them down. Oops. Let's do one at a time. So that created a composition right here that is the size of the graphic. So do them one at a time. Don't try and drag both like I just did it initially. And then drag down the MP3. You can see this MP3, this bar is a length of a little less than 30 seconds. So we want to end our composition when the MP3 ends. So go to the work area end when this cursor changes to that right arrow and drag it till it's just about where the end of the MP3 is. Perfect. So at this point, you're going to want to go into Layer, and we're going to add a new solid. And it's the size of our picture, which is 1200 by 1200. And you don't have to change anything. Just hit OK, dark gray solid. And then you're going to go to Effect and generate an audio spectrum or an audio waveform. The spectrum is discrete little tick marks that go up and down at each frequency. The waveform is those same tick marks, but with the dots connected. So it's going to connect all those dots and make an actual kind of wave looking thing. Up to you, whatever one you want to use. I use the spectrum, and it pulls up this menu over here. What we want to change is the source that the tick marks are going to be moving up and down to. We want the source to be the MP3 file, not the dark gray solid. So click on that. And it's hard to tell, but inside between this dot and this dot are all the small tick marks, and we can't see them very well. Let me make them thicker. So each of these numbers that are blue, you can drag to adjust. So if I make the tick marks thicker, they should start to show up, and you'll notice they're not showing up. And what that means is it's actually hidden behind the picture. So if I drag this up, there it is. The little purple dots showed up. So I can make them even thicker than they are right here. That looks pretty good. And I can change the maximum height. And since it's linked up to the MP3, if I hit play now with the space bar, it should start going up and down, matching the audio. So we can just see what the default looks like.
I had this curse of knowledge. I didn't understand
the value of what I did.
As my computer struggles to record this and then also play back at the same time. So it is working. It's going up and down with the MP3. We can change the colors of the inside if we want. So I can select something like this bright yellow of the golden apple, and I can make something on the outside, maybe, I don't know, the darker kind of brown gold. And that now changes the color of these things. But what I really want to do is get this not centered, but moved off to the side. So if I go to the start point and the end point, these are like X and Y coordinates of those positions. I can click and drag this left and right, and it's going to move that starting point. And I really just want that to start at the beginning. So I can double click and then hit 0. And so it starts full left. And then where does this end? I hit escape to get out of this, and then I can click and drag this. Oh, sorry, this is the Y position of the starting point. I kind of want it to start about there, somewhere between these words guest lecture and the word academic. This one I want to be ending right where the transition happens. So I can click and drag and kind of eyeball it, or I know it's a 1200 by 1200 image, so I can change it to 600 and it should be dead center. And then I want this to be a horizontal line, so that's 714. I'm going to change this one to 714 as well. So once I type the number, I hit tab or enter, and it just changes it for me. So that looks like a good position. Let's see what it sounds like, or what it looks like once the MP3 plays.
I had this curse of knowledge. I didn't understand.
That's okay. I think it could be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to change the maximum height up a little more. And then I could also do things like these are too small, these little tick marks. Say I want to spread them out. I could get fewer tick marks with changing the number of frequency bands like that down to 18, 19 of them. I could go up to a lot more if I wanted to, a lot more continuous. But I like the discrete. I like the maybe 32 is a good number. I think that's what I've used in the past. 32 is a good amount. Let's see. Oops. Let's see what it looks like if I play.
Didn't understand the value of what I did.
What I did.
Again, sorry for the playback glitching. Okay, let's change the start frequency and the end frequency. Her voice isn't at 1 hertz. That's really low frequency. So I can change this to something that's too high. Maybe 200 is a good starting frequency for a human voice. And then the end frequency, if I have it too high, if I have it like 10,000, her voice isn't going up there. Most of her voice is going to be closer to 200 than it is to 10,000. So let's see what happens if I have the end frequency.
So in the beginning, I just thought
it was hard to tell, but most of it action was happening over on this end. So I want to keep this kind of tight. And 200 to 600, we can get some good animations happening. And let's see what that preview looks like.
I had this curse of knowledge. I didn't understand
The value.
I didn't understand the value of what I did.
Again, struggling to play back, but a lot of animation is dancing back and forth in this region, so that looks good to me. We can adjust everything, maximum height, offset I don't really need to do much with. I can change the thickness, make it a little bit of a thicker bar for each of those tick marks. Softness is kind of like fuzziness. How blurry are these things, or are they sharp? And that's pretty much it. You can do a lot more things with the different colors in this region, but I typically don't touch those parts. But that's basically how you get this to be a nice looking animation. And despite the preview playback going pretty slowly on this computer, it does work well after you render it. So it's not going to render like that. So the way to finish up is to export, add to Adobe Media Encoder queue. And this opens up a new application, a different application, the Adobe Media Encoder. And then once that's synced up, so the Media Encoder queue adds this new After Effects file, which then exports it in whatever settings you want. And it should be set up pretty much ready to go to be put on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or something like that. So it takes a second, a little bit of a beach ball, builds up what we have working, and then it should be added to this list right here once it's all caught up and knows what's going on. And then once it's finished, what I typically do is once it's added here, I click on the output file and I change the name and location that it's saved to. And because right now it's going to this var folder. So click on that and it opens up asking you where you want to save it. So go to the desktop and you can save it there. That sounds fine. And that's a perfectly fine name. H264 is fine. Don't need to worry about that. And you just hit the green play button and it starts encoding. And once it's finished, you'll have your nice waveform file saved to your desktop. So let it finish up here. All right, so that took about a minute, and my computer is extremely hot trying to encode this and record the screen at the same time. So let me show you what the end result is. I'll open this in QuickTime, and let's take a look.
I had this curse of knowledge. I didn't understand the value of what I did. So in the beginning, I just thought they're not going to understand.
Cool, it's fine. Maybe I would scoot that a little bit over off the edge, not starting at 0 exactly. This looks good. I would maybe make things a little sharper, but that looks pretty close to perfect to me. So let me go back into After Effects. And what you can do is save this file as AEP file somewhere. And that looks good as a waveform, or I guess it's technically a spectrum. But let's say I wanted to come back and do the next one. I would open up this AEP file and it would regenerate everything with the old graphic and MP3. But say you deleted those, it would give you an error that those files aren't found anymore, which is fine. It's not a big issue. You would just drag in your new MP3 and your new graphics file into this region and then pull those down below. But then one last thing you might have to do sometimes is change what this dark gray solid, which is where the spectrum graphic is linked to. So the next time you come into this, make sure you click on that dark gray solid and open up these effect controls and set the source as the MP3, because maybe you've deleted the MP3 or it's moved since the last time you did that. Make sure you go back in and reconnect it to the MP3. And if this isn't here, a quick way to do that is when you click on the dark gray solid, hit F3. You can hold down the function button on a Mac keyboard, FN. Hold down FN and press the F3 button, and that opens up these controls where you change the source to the MP3. And if things, for example, like we saw originally, sometimes this happens where your waveform's not shown, drag it on this bottom left area, drag it up to the top, and that's going to be the front of the graphic. Sometimes this might be behind the composition or something like that. But in general, this is a stack with this as the front and then what's down below as the back. And you don't even have to change anything. It's just click and drag your MP3s, relink it, and you are finished for your next podcast episode. So I hope this was helpful, and take care.